By the age of 55, Richard Rodriguez had everything a man his age could dream of. A business that consistently generated a high income, a large house, and an entire fleet of cars. Of course, his family was worth a special mention. Richard's greatest pride was his daughter, Ashley, who had been living in one of the Western European countries for several years. It just so happened that she went there for an internship after she got her economics degree and decided to stay. Richard's wife had passed away 15 years ago, leaving him alone with a young child. At that time, no one could have predicted that Richard would achieve such great success. Everyone saw him as an average mid-level businessman whose abilities didn't seem all that impressive. But when Richard lost his wife, he realized that things couldn't continue this way. It was from that moment that Richard's rapid ascent to financial success began. He put in maximum effort to ensure his daughter wanted for nothing. Richard had to overcome many challenges before he finally felt self-sufficient and independent. Ashley tried to help her father throughout this journey and planned to work in his company after completing her studies. However, Richard decided differently. He wanted his daughter to try something on her own first, and only then join the family business. Deep down, Ashley was against this decision. But her father's commanding tone and persistent recommendations convinced her to follow his advice. Even though Ashley only planned on staying in Europe for a month or two, she ended up staying for 4 full years. During this time, Richard's life went through some significant changes. First of all, it concerned his family situation. He met a woman named Amanda quite by chance. It happened at one of the art exhibitions he attended. Richard had developed a good understanding of painting, and after achieving financial success, he even started investing in artwork. Richard and Amanda immediately engaged in an animated conversation about Renaissance artists. The first encounter marked the beginning of a new relationship in the businessman's life. Apart from her striking appearance, Amanda possessed exceptional intellectual abilities, which immediately caught Richard's attention. The romantic dating period lasted for about 6 months, after which they decided to move in together. Richard was well aware that his beloved had 2 children. She had a son named Francis and a daughter named Megan. He established a trusting relationship with them from the moment they met. Moreover, Richard allowed Amanda's children to also move in with them, so their mother could maintain a close relationship with them. Ashley learned all of this in a phone conversation with her father. Due to her busy work schedule, she had only seen her father via video calls over the past 4 years. She had never met Amanda, Francis, or Megan, although she had heard many good things about them. Primarily from her father, of course. It wasn't surprising that Richard was captivated by Amanda, who seemed to him like the epitome of femininity and beauty. "Daddy, you speak so highly of her. I imagine her as a true angel," Ashley remarked with a smile during one of their video calls. "Yes, honey, that's exactly the way she is. Sometimes I lack the words to express my admiration for Amanda," Richard replied proudly. Ashley smiled. Understanding her father's romantic mood, she was happy to see such pleasant changes in his personal life. Well, he can't love one person for the rest of his days, especially since Mom will always remain in our hearts. She tried to convince herself, attempting to ignore unexplainable moments of unease. She couldn't really understand what was bothering her. On the one hand, she was happy for her father, but on the other hand, she was worried that they were moving too fast. They could have continued dating. Why did they have to move in together so soon, especially in our family home, where there are photos of Mom everywhere? Ashley wondered. Being the smart woman that she was, Ashley suspected that it was jealousy that was making her feel this way. However, as subsequent events would unravel, there was more to it than just that. Since Ashley had been away for over 4 years, she decided that it was time to finally pay her father a visit. She had already booked her tickets when she received some very shocking news. Her father had suffered a heart attack the night before. Fortunately, he had received timely medical attention, which allowed him to avoid severe consequences. As soon as the man started feeling ill, he called an ambulance, thus undoubtedly saving his own life. However, when Ashley spoke with his attending physician, one very intriguing detail emerged. "You see, Miss Rodriguez, your father had regular checkups at our hospital, and he never had any heart problems. Do you understand me?" The cardiologist began. "What are you hinting at, sir?" Ashley asked, having a hard time restraining herself. The phone in her hands was trembling due to the stress she experienced over the news of her father's illness. The doctor hesitated for a moment, then said, "The thing is, there was a plant-based toxin found in your father's blood. That was probably what caused his heart attack, Miss Rodriguez. I don't know how it made its way into your father's diet, but whoever added the poison to his food clearly knew what they were doing." Ashley was shaken by the doctor's words. Who could wish her father dead? Who had he crossed? Her mind began racing as she analyzed the situation. The longer she thought about the incident, the more she realized that betrayal had surely played a role in this situation. Only someone close to him, someone he trusted implicitly, could have added poison to his food. Eventually, having weighed all of the pros and cons, Ashley decided to return to the United States incognito. She didn't tell anyone about it, except for her fiancé, who would remain in Europe. She managed to change her tickets for an earlier flight and was soon on her way home. Her plan turned out to be the right one. Acting like an international spy, she managed to keep her arrival in the United States a secret. The surprise on her father's face when she entered his hospital room after the morning rounds was indescribable. "Ashley, how did you find out? Why didn't you let us know that you were coming? I would have sent someone to pick you up from the airport." "Dad, I think it's better for no one to know about my return for now. You see, you have an enemy who tried to get rid of you," Ashley said and instinctively looked around the room. Of course, there was no one else in the room except for her and her father. But as they say, you can never be too cautious. And Ashley understood this better than anyone else. As soon as he learned that someone had attempted to harm him with an unknown substance, Richard's face changed completely. The doctor initially didn't tell the patient that someone tried to poison him, but now it was pointless to keep it a secret. "What should we do, dear? Amanda could also be in danger, not to mention Francis and Megan," Richard asked. Ashley brushed her bangs away from her eyes and then voiced her idea. "Dad, I think it's best for Amanda not to know what exactly caused your heart attack just yet. Let her think there was no foul play involved. Meanwhile, I'll try to discreetly investigate everyone living in your house." "How do you plan to do this, dear? Although you did live in Europe all this time. I suppose that no one really knows how you look. But do you really think someone living in my house could have poisoned me?" the businessman asked with surprise. Ashley smiled mysteriously. "Dad, I don't know what to think just yet, but it's definitely worth checking them all. As for keeping my identity secret, I'm going to get myself hired as a maid. You've been wanting to hire a housekeeper for a while, haven't you? Well, that will be me. Just give Amanda a call and let her know that I'm coming, and I'll convince her to hire me." Richard looked at his daughter with undisguised amazement. He had never seen her like this before. She was strong, confident, and determined. It seemed that her life away from home did her good. It definitely strengthened her character. "Well, let's see what comes out of this," Richard whispered, hiding a smile. An hour later, Ashley was already standing at the doorstep of the house where she'd spent her childhood. Her father intentionally introduced the maid under a different name, calling her Nancy. When the door opened and Ashley saw Amanda, the guest felt rather uncomfortable. Lying is always a challenge, especially when you're not a born liar. Having given the maid a displeased look, Amanda began showing her around the house. Of course, Ashley knew every room in the house, but pretending to be a humble woman named Nancy, she couldn't admit to it. She also couldn't help but notice how boldly and confidently Amanda acted in her parents' room. This definitely wasn't the kind and gentle woman her father described. A commanding and domineering businesswoman was now standing in front of the maid, and she clearly expected nothing but absolute obedience from the help. But when Ashley, disguised as the maid Nancy, met Francis and Megan, her suspicions about this family only intensified. Amanda's children turned out to be extremely spoiled and arrogant individuals for whom the work of others held no value. "Oh, who's this? A new cleaning lady? She looks like a beggar. Where did Richard find her?" Megan remarked out loud. Nancy turned pale but pretended not to have heard the comment. Amanda looked at her daughter disapprovingly. It was clear that she was trying desperately to maintain the illusion of a happy family. Francis was no better than his sister, treating the young maid with disdain. "What is she even doing here? Probably came to snoop around, didn't she? Your weapon is a mop and a broom. If you want the floor to shine, just lick it. That will make it cleaner," Francis said. Nancy nodded, although her insides were boiling with anger. How could her father have believed in such a cheap charade? Everyone in this house was a liar, pretending to be something they were not. All right, let's see how this unfolds. I hope I have the strength to endure all of this, Nancy thought. Now a new life started for her, which was full of criticism and humiliation. Amanda, Megan, and Frances acted as if they truly owned that house. It was actually partially true, since Richard Rodriguez had been in the hospital all this time receiving treatment in the cardiology department. Every evening, Ashley found the opportunity to call her father with an update on her observations. Frankly speaking, Richard found it very hard to believe what his daughter was telling him. After all, Amanda, Megan, and Frances had been so kind to him. But Ashley was telling a completely different story. Attributing Ashley's conclusions to her excessive sensitivity, Richard asked her not to rush to conclusions. This continued until Ashley became an involuntary witness to a very strange conversation between Frances and his mother, Amanda. So, how long are we going to put up with this old man? How did he even manage to survive? Frances started, speaking in hushed tones. Amanda grimaced. How should I know? The seller must have sold a weak extract or something. That thing was supposed to take down an elephant, let alone some aging businessman. Standing by the half-closed door, Nancy froze with fear. She just unintentionally overheard the mother and son discuss killing her father. Barely managing to wait till her shift was over, Ashley hurried to the nearest police station. There, she filed an official report and even provided an audio recording from her smartphone. Police officers arrived at Richard Rodriguez's house the same day. During the interrogation, it turned out that the trio wasn't actually related and had come together solely to get their hands on the gullible businessman's assets. Amanda, Megan, and Frances were members of a criminal group that specialized in such schemes. Upon learning that his daughter had saved his life, Richard couldn't hold back his tears. He hugged Ashley in his hospital room and vowed to be more cautious in his personal life. He also asked his daughter to stay in the United States and lead his company. Richard never regretted his decision because, under Ashley's leadership, his business reached unprecedented heights, making both the father and daughter very happy.